Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive today that takes us back not just centuries, but millennia straight into the geopolitical framework of ancient India.
That's right.
We're looking at a source stack that details a theory of the state that views the nation not as a set of rules or a geographical area, but as a complex, living, breathing organism.
It's a remarkably holistic framework
Okay.
and sophisticated, but also, you know, ruthlessly pragmatic.
So what's our focus?
Our focus is Kautilya's Saptanga theory, or the seven limbs. It's an ancient Indian model that systematically structured the seven requirements for a successful kingdom.
And it's still studied today.
Oh, absolutely. For comparative governance, for political science, it's a foundational text.
So our mission is to understand the anatomy of this ancient state. What are the seven parts? How do they interact? And why does a theory formulated thousands of years ago still provide a kind of conceptual blueprint for state survival?
Exactly. And the architect behind this, we should say, is Kautilya.
Also known as Chanakya.
Yes. And he was far more than just a theorist. He was the primary strategic advisor, the prime minister, who helped Chandragupta Maurya establish one of the largest empires in ancient India.
So this is an abstract philosophy.
Not at all.
Hmm.
His main work, the Arthashastra, is where we get most of this, and it's basically a how-to guide, though the theory does pop up elsewhere in texts like the Manusmritis.
So we're dealing with the ultimate insider's view of how to build and maintain an empire. What's the core premise here?
The fundamental concept is almost mechanical. The state is described as a single body and is made up of seven interconnected elements or limbs. It's a profoundly practical and, I'd say, materialist view of statecraft.
So forget abstract ideas of justice or freedom for a moment.
Right. Kautilya gives you a functional blueprint. Administration, finance, security, foreign policy, it's all there, and it's all aimed at one single goal.
Survival.
Survival and prosperity of the state.
And the term Saptanga, that literally means the seven limbs.
It does. And Kautilya organized them hierarchically, which suggests, the priority of their importance. He believed these seven elements were the essential, non-negotiable requirements needed to run a state successfully.
And if one limb fails...
A whole body suffers. It's that interconnected.
Okay, so let's start at the top of that hierarchy. The first three elements seem to focus on people and the rule. The foundation is the Swami.
The Swami, yes.
Yeah.
The king or the ruler. This is the head, the ultimate decision maker of this organism.
And Kautilya put some serious demands on this person.
Immense demands, almost superhuman. He insisted the ruler be wise, disciplined, and above all, a critical thinker. Someone who had mastered the sciences of statecraft.
Because everything else revolves around them.
Exactly. His main jobs were maintaining law and order, running the administration, and protecting his people from all threats, both internal and external. The state's success is directly proportional to the ruler's capacity.
But you can't run an empire solo, no matter how wise you are.
Of course not. So that brings us to the Amatya, the crucial second limb.
These are the ministers, the higher officers. The brain trust.
The brain trust, that's a good way to put it. They're the operational arm of the state that translates the king's will into action.
So what were their specific duties?
Well, they were vast. Strategic policy planning, auditing expenditures, coordinating army logistics, and, crucially, efficient revenue collection. Kautilya even suggests a state might survive a weak king if the Amatyas are strong.
But not the other way around.
Chaos is guaranteed if the administration fails. They are the essential filter between the ruler and, well, reality.
Okay, so that's the leadership. The third limb, Janapada, seems to be where the rubber meets the road. It's the territory and the people.
Yes, this defines the human and the geographical base of the state. And Kautilya was highly specific about what makes an ideal Janapada.
It wasn't just about drawing lines on a map.
No, not at all. The territory had to possess specific, valuable resources. Things like reliable river water, fertile land for agriculture, and establish markets for trade.
So it's not just about size, it's about viability.
Precisely. And he stressed that there is no Janapada without people. And those people should ideally be loyal. They should be industrious.
And in return...
In return, the state's duty was the intense protection of life and property. That's why the sources focus so much on economic policies, encouraging agriculture, trade, and craftsmanship. It's a reciprocal relationship.
All right, so we've covered the core of rule and people. Now let's transition to the more material assets that support the state. The infrastructure, The fourth limb is the Durga.
The Durga. This is the capital and the fortification system. It is literally the core, the fortified heart of the state.
And a strong Durga meant a strong state.
It was a symbol of an invincible state. The Arthashastra actually describes 4 different types of fortifications:
What were they?
water forts, hill forts, desert forts, and forest forts. The point was that the capital had to be strategically defensible. It also needed connecting roads and a guaranteed supply chain of resources, especially in case of a siege.
So it's the armored shell protecting the vital organs.
That's a perfect analogy.
And speaking of vital organs, that brings us to the fifth limb, the Kosha, the Treasury. Without this, I imagine nothing moves.
You're absolutely right. The Kosha is the state revenue, the stored wealth, the funds. It's the lifeblood of the organism.
And Kautilya's book, the Arthashastra, is largely about economics, right?
Yes, it's a manual on economics and administration, really. So he makes a crucial insight here. A rich, but also well-managed treasury is essential for every single critical function of the state.
Why so pivotal? What does it enable?
Well, Kosha is power. It pays the armies, it funds public works and welfare, and crucially, it lets the king finance wars or even buy off potential enemies without bankrupting his own people.
So a solvent treasury is a strategic asset.
It's the ultimate strategic asset. He advocates for clear, pragmatic revenue generation to ensure the Kosha is always full. Without it, the entire machine grinds to a catastrophic halt.
Okay, if the Kosha is the bank account, then the sixth limb, Bala, or sometimes Danda, that's the security system, the army.
Exactly. The Bala, or the rod of power, the Danda, it has multiple functions that go beyond just external defense.
I was going to ask about that.
Of course, protecting state borders is vital, but the army also suppresses internal rebellions, and it provides protection to the king and the nobles.
So it's an instrument of both foreign policy and internal control.
Yes. Kautilya had preferences here, too. He wanted non-mercenary troops, and he insisted the army must be structured, loyal to the king, and contain specialized units, cavalry, chariots, infantry. Loyalty was paramount.
And that brings us to the seventh and final limb, Mitra. This means friends and allies.
It does.
Yeah, for a system so focused on self-preservation, why are external relationships considered an inherent structural part of the state? That seems modern.
It is, and that's the pivotal detail that sets this theory apart from many others. Kautilya insists that an ally in Mitra is a structural element.
Why?
Because a loyal ally is critical during times of war or a financial crisis or even an internal rebellion. Diplomacy isn't an optional add-on for him. It's woven into the necessary anatomy of the state.
So no state can survive in isolation.
That's his argument. He even distinguishes between natural allies, who have mutual benefit, and what he calls artificial allies, who are more like temporary tools.
So we've got the 7 parts: Swami, Amatya, Janapada, Durga, Kosha, Bala, and Mitra. But defining the parts is, only half the story. If this is truly an organism, how do these limbs function together?
This is where the depth of the Arthashastra really shines. It stresses a kind of radical interdependence.
So no single element is self-sufficient.
Not even the Swami. The whole point of the Saptanga theory isn't just to list requirements, but to show that every element must support and rely on the others for the state to be stable.
Can you give us an example of that interdependence in action? I mean, if one limb weakens, how quickly does the failure cascade?
Let's take the most sensitive area, finance and security. Imagine a failure in the Kosha, the treasury.
Okay.
Maybe there's a drought or corruption, so the revenue collection from the Janapada, the people and territory, just collapses.
Right. The money dries up.
Immediately, the Bala, the army, cannot be paid. And an unpaid, disloyal army is arguably more dangerous than an external enemy.
It could lead to a mutiny.
A mutiny, or just an inability to maintain order, which means the Swami fails at his central job, protection. And suddenly the whole system collapses.
The Amatya can't administer, the Durga can't be maintained.
Exactly. It all falls apart. Kautilya places the king first, yes, but he explicitly states the king cannot function alone. The coordination with the Amatya is the check on raw power. Without this smooth, integrated cooperation, the state is doomed.
It's fascinating how it's all based on this cold administrative logic. The key principles are just purely functional.
It's the science of state survival. Maintain your alliances, manage your money, and keep a loyal army, which, leads us directly into the criticisms of the theory.
Because a theory built purely for survival often comes at the expense of ideology.
That's a great way to put it.
So while the structure's impressive, it was built for a monarchy thousands of years ago. When we look at it through a contemporary lens, what are the biggest problems?
The first, and the most obvious one, is its inherent monarchical and elitist bias. The entire theory is focused on the king and his high officials.
A closed-loop system for maintaining power.
It is. It doesn't contain any concept of popular sovereignty or fundamental human rights as we would define them today. It's a government that really only concerns the elite classes.
Okay, what's the second major critique?
That would be its ruthless pragmatism, which is often just labeled as militarism. Critics argue Kautilya placed way too much stress on military power, expansion, and security.
The idea that the ends justify the means.
Very much so. It's a blueprint for a strong state, maybe even a predatory one, but not necessarily a just one.
And this feeds into a third point, which is how it views the actual people, the citizenry.
Yes, the populace seems to be viewed as a means to an end. The theory puts less light on people as, autonomous individuals.
They're just part of the Janapada.
They're part of the Janapada, a territory to be managed, or they're part of the Kosha, the revenue cycle. Modern concepts we value, equality, justice, freedom, liberty, they are fundamentally undervalued or just aren't priorities in this framework.
So, if the concepts are flawed by our modern standards, why do political scientists and historians still study the Saptang theory? What's the ultimate so what?
The so what is its incredible utility as a conceptual mapping tool.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, despite the massive shifts in ideology, from king to president, from dynasty to democracy, the fundamental structural requirements that Kautilya identified remain pretty much unchanged.
So you can map these ancient limbs onto a modern nation-state.
Absolutely. Think about it. The concepts of government and executive power still resemble the combined functions of the Swami and the Amatya.
Okay.
The geography and resources, the Janapada, still define a state's viability. Security is now handled by protecting critical infrastructure, which is a modern Durga, and the military and law enforcement, which is the Danda.
And the economy.
The entire national economy is still fundamentally reliant on a well-managed central reserve, the Kosha.
So Kautilya basically provided a timeless structural template, even if the internal mechanisms like who gets to be the Swami have been completely democratized.
That's the enduring relevance.
Ah.
It teaches us what the timeless, non-negotiable requirements for state survival really are, regardless of the political flavor. It remains a vital tool for comparing state structures across history.
So, to sum up, we've seen how Kautilya designed the state as this single, complex, interdependent body. The failure of one limb, whether it's the king's character, the treasury collapsing, or a disloyal army, it jeopardizes the entire organism.
And for you, the learner, this provides a powerful structured checklist. A way to think about the fundamental components any governing body, ancient or modern, must satisfy to maintain order and survive. It takes you beyond abstract theory into practical reality.
And as we close out, I want to go back to that surprising seventh limb, the Mitra, the friends and allies. Kautilya placed foreign alliances as a necessary structural component of the state over 2,000 years ago. He integrated diplomacy into the state's very anatomy.
Which raises a really important question for today, I think.
Go on.
If Kautilya argued a state is incomplete without its alliances, what does that imply about the modern concept of true self-reliance for a nation?
Especially today.
Exactly. When global financial markets, military alliances like NATO, and digital infrastructure create an interdependence that's exponentially higher than anything Kautilya could have imagined, is it even possible for any nation to be truly self-sufficient?
Or is Mitra, the network of allies, now the most crucial limb of all?
Something for you to mull over as you compare that ancient blueprint to our modern world.